Westbrook Health Services has been supporting the surrounding community since 1949 and is known as an agency that is community-focused, people-driven. As one of West Virginia's 13 comprehensive behavioral health centers, Westbrook provides services to 8 counties throughout the Mountaineer State and became one of the first comprehensive community behavioral health clinics in West Virginia in 2020. This podcast wouldn't be possible without the generous help of the Sisters Health Foundation. This year marks 25 years since the foundation awarded its first grant, and we couldn't be more grateful for their support. Welcome to Studio 2121.
Well, welcome to podcast Studio 2121. I hope you enjoy this episode. We are going to get into some talk about anxiety today and what that is and what it means and how you might be able to recognize it, seek treatment, that sort of thing. I'm your host today, Kevin Trippett, the CEO of Westbrook Health Services, and I hope you've enjoyed the podcast that we've had so far. And we will continue to put these out and help the audience with some education about behavioral health. So with me today, I have Shelby Stevenson. She is a therapist in our Spencer office down in Roane County. How long have you been with us now, Shelby?
I've been a little bit over 2 years.
Okay.
With the company, so. Yeah.
How long have you been a therapist?
I've been a therapist for almost 24 years.
Oh, wow.
Now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, got a little bit of experience in dealing with anxiety.
Yes.
Today's topic. So.
Well,
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name's Shelby Stevenson, and I'm a licensed professional counselor here in West Virginia. I've been a therapist for 24 years. Recently relocated from Florida, where I'm still licensed there.
Okay.
I've worked with a variety of clients, both inpatient and outpatient. Currently, I'm carrying a caseload, also running a group with our crisis stabilization unit. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today. So.
Now that's interesting. You're from Florida. Most people go the other way around.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I know. That is so true. But we wanted to come up here for a lot of reasons. Our oldest son got recruited to play football.
Okay.
For Alderson Broaddus University.
Oh, great.
And so we were driving back and forth 700 miles at one way. And every time we came up here, it was like, it was so relaxing.
Yeah.
It's very different down there with the oppressive heat and the hurricanes and
Right.
humidity. But now we live on 120 acres and it's amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so.
Almost sounds like moving here helped you relieve some of your anxiety.
It did, because we lived in the city, 2 miles from the Orlando International Airport.
Okay.
And we actually lived, the landing vector for the airport was right over our house.
Oh, wow.
And so literally every 5 minutes was another plane, from 6 a.m. to midnight. And
Keep you from falling asleep.
Oh yeah, it did. And let me tell you, being within a metropolitan city, there's a lot of anxiety-provoking things.
Well, yeah,
And
I can imagine.
Yeah. So now we live on 120 acres, and there's a lot of things that we do that relieve stress and anxiety.
Oh, that's great.
So,
Good.
yeah.
So, anxiety is probably a term a lot of us are familiar with. We hear a lot about it sometimes. People relate to some chest pains. Maybe you're not actually having a heart attack. Maybe you're having symptoms of anxiety.
Right.
What is anxiety exactly?
The term has different meanings to different people. As a therapist, I often, when I'm educating my clients, I tell them that it has a physical piece to it and a emotional piece to it. Obviously, when somebody starts getting anxious, I kind of think of it like a bonfire, where when you first start a bonfire, it kind of smolders.
Okay.
But then as it gets bigger and bigger, it's just an inferno. And that's the way I kind of conceptualize anxiety to my clients. First of all, from a physical perspective, anxiety starts off with maybe your hands get sweaty or your heart starts beating fast. You might have a little bit of a headache.
Mm-hmm.
Your respiration gets a little bit pumped up. Because what your body is preparing to do is to either stand and fight or to flee. And it's an involuntary type thing. You can't really stop it once it starts.
Okay.
But your body's just getting ready to do something. From an emotional perspective, you might feel overwhelmed. You're going to feel like things are closing in. It's going to be hard to concentrate, maybe. It's going to be hard to focus because everything is getting ready to either stand and fight or flee. So from an emotional perspective, it's very intense. And for some people, they'll have generalized anxiety,
Okay.
where maybe it's everywhere all the time, sun up, sun down, and then some. Others have more situational anxiety, or maybe it's hard to take a test,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe going to Walmart, which most people get anxious when they go in there,
Yeah.
if not from a financial perspective, but from a just dealing with crowds or being in a situation that starts that spark. I think for people, the best place to start, and this is kind of what I think about with my clients,
Sure.
is to understand what starts the process.
Mm-hmm.
Because believe it or not, it starts with up here.
Right.
Your thoughts. That's what kicks it off. And then what happens is the emotion kicks up, kind of like that bonfire,
Mm-hmm.
getting bigger. And then what happens is a lot of people have panic attacks, which I think of as the inferno.
Right. Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
The idea as a therapist is to kind of help the client identify what are the triggers, what makes it worse. Is it a particular time of day? Is it a place you go that triggers and that's called a trigger.
Mm-hmm. Could be being around a certain person or a
Yes.
certain number of people, maybe.
Yes,
Okay.
or going shopping or just even leaving your house. Some people can't leave their homes, which is why I'm so glad that here at Westbrook we get them services even in their house.
Yes. Telehealth.
Telehealth, that's
Telephone.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
I have a few clients like that just are petrified to leave their house. And that's the more severe type of anxiety.
Sure.
If a person has, and I kind of talk to my clients about this, there's a lot of ways, once you get your triggers understood, then you have to learn kind of, okay, how do I fix this? Like, how do I cope
Right.
with anxiety? And there's a lot of ways that are good and some ways that are not good. Some good ways would be things like exercise. What exercise does is it naturally releases endorphins when you do it long enough that kind of make you feel happy.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of like that marathon runner
Mm-hmm.
that about the 12th mile he gets to going or she does, and the whole, oh man, the body is so tired they want to stop, but they release that natural endorphins. So it's
Call that the runner's high.
yes.
Yes.
Which, do you run?
I do.
Okay, so you
Yep.
know what that feels like.
Yeah.
I need to run, but anyway,
I
I'm
actually
working
just
on
did my first marathon in October.
it. You did.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It
What
was-
what mile did you experience that runner's high?
It was probably we're halfway.
Yeah,
So around 15 or
yeah.
so. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you know what it feels like.
Yeah.
When you exercise and you're anxious, your body releases that natural endorphins so that the anxiety goes down. It takes the gas off the fire.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the goal of treatment. Instead of an inferno, we want a little, maybe not even a smolder. That's what we're trying to get to. From volume 10 down to regular.
Yeah.
Another coping mechanism that I kind of like my clients to do, a lot of times people's anxiety is triggered by the unknown. They don't know what's going to happen. There's no plan. Say, for example, finances. They're living paycheck to paycheck. There's no plan if somebody should become sick and unable to work. So or that's just an example,
Right.
or some other events happening, but they have no plan. If they have a plan, they're not going to be as anxious.
Okay, yeah.
Because they know exactly what they're going to do if the situation unfolds.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I not to tell tales, but that's kind of how my wife is. She's a planner. She likes to know what the plan is. If we go do something and there is no plan, then yes, she gets anxious about that.
Yeah, because it's a surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a surprise. So the whole goal of coping mechanisms is to have a plan. Should things happen, things unfold. Another coping mechanism that a lot of people will use, which is so easy, is just deep breathing. You know, they'll close their eyes. Maybe they go to Walmart or a gathering of family. It's too big. They start feeling closed in. They'll go to the bathroom, close their eyes, and take some deep breaths. What that's doing is that's stopping the fire, because the body, instead of going into inferno mode, will actually stop the cycle of it getting bigger, because the body starts focusing on breathing.
So you concentrate. You're switching your thought process to just your breathing, so you can ignore those other things that are going on at that time moment.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. So that helps to kind of stop the cycle, the gas. I call it the gas on the fire. We got to take the gas off the fire, and make it smaller.
No, I think that's a great analogy. That makes it really relatable. Understanding.
Yeah, most people around here burn brush. You know, out in the hollers we do.
Sure. Sometimes in the city too. So
yeah,
I've seen it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But you start it small, and So another coping mechanism, and this is kind of thinking out of the box, because as a therapist, I kind of think out of the box a little bit. But I actually have my folks decorate a shoebox, and that is actually their worry box.
Okay.
And I have them decorated in a form of a theme. So I've had everything from muscle cars to Frozen, which is from Disney.
Yes.
And everything in between. And when a person starts feeling anxious, what they're going to do is they're going to write down what they're feeling anxious about, fold it up, and stick it in the worry box. And while it's in the worry box, they can't worry about it. What that exercise is designed to do is to take the thoughts that are generating the anxiety and some of the anxious feelings that they're having, putting it down on paper so that it's away. And that does take the gas off the fire.
Does that also help you feel like you have control over the situation when you do that step?
Absolutely. Because what ends up happening is, as a person's writing, they're seeing what's making them anxious, they're feeling it, but it's gone. And it doesn't have the power to make the fire bigger. It doesn't. Because it's out of your body, it's out of your mind, it's out of your heart, and it's on that paper. Now, I have some sneaky clients, okay?
Yeah.
Because what they like to do, and I go, what they like to do is they like to worry about the worry box.
Interesting.
They can't do that, though.
Right.
So I have another exercise that I do with them. What I like to do is I like to lead them through what's called a guided imagery. And what that is where I talk to them and I describe through all of their senses a very peaceful scene. Mm-hmm. Usually I ask them, now, do you like the mountains or the beach better? Most of the time they pick the beach.
Okay.
And I'm like,
because we already have mountains in this area.
That's right. Most of them pick the beach because
something different.
Exactly. And I have them picture that they're walking down a beautiful white sandy beach with the warm breeze in their face, that the sand is warm to the touch of their toes, and I walk through all the senses. And at the very end, I have them in their minds sit under a palm tree with their worry box right there. And then I have them rest under the palm tree. We do some deep breathing. And then I have them leave their worry box in their minds on the beach.
Okay.
And then what I have them do is go away and go back to their house. And then when they come back in the session, I give them a homework assignment. Because I like to do fun homework, right?
Well, who likes to do boring homework?
Exactly. So what I have them do is I have them get several pieces of paper, and I have them draw a beach scene on each piece of paper and put them throughout their house. And then I use a little humor. I say, now you got to have a conversation with your family so they don't think that you're not all there. And what you got to do is you got to tell them that if they see that you're anxious, all they got to do is point to the picture, wherever it is in the house, and then you go quietly to your room, close your eyes, and go to the beach in your mind.
Yeah.
Or the mountain in your mind.
Your happy place.
Absolutely. And do you know, every time, with very few exceptions, unless they're psychotic, which then that's not appropriate.
Right.
But every time they're like, so maybe they first came into session with their leg going, but by the end of session, they're,
Yeah.
And it's a great technique to take care of anxiety.
No, and everything you described just illustrates why therapy can be so useful. Many people don't understand these skills on their own, and what you're doing is helping them develop these skills and practices so they can learn to manage it and lead a fairly normal life from that point. So
Absolutely. Absolutely, because anxiety is very debilitating. When you're so anxious that you can't leave your home, it's so hard to have that courage to go into therapy or to go get medicine or to do both. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I just think our clients and all of our listeners out there are so courageous. It takes a lot of courage, and that's one of the things I like to encourage my clients and give them that pat on the back, because you know what? They walk through that door.
Right.
And just even coming to therapy is anxiety producing.
Sure.
Especially if they've had a bad experience with another agency. To be able to come back.
Yeah,
and
I'm
give
sure
us,
it's pretty brave to do that.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell them, I normalize it. I'm like, you know what you had happen to you was not okay.
Right.
And I'm sorry that you went through that with another agency. But we're here today, and we're going to help it today. And you know what? I have literally seen the anxiety go out of my client. Like, they're right there. They're like, a lot of times, even just yesterday, I had a client, and they were like, you know what? I was so scared about coming here. But now I'm not. And I'm like, there you go.
Yeah.
And I told that person, I said, you know what? We're not going to eat you. We're not going to eat you.
Yeah.
And that humor works great when dealing also with anxiety.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, go.
So I can imagine if you're dealing with anxiety day in and day out, and you're not learning coping skills to help calm that down, there's probably a lot of side effects from a health standpoint.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, what are some of the things someone living with anxiety may cause them to have health-wise?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because it has been scientifically proven that the mind and the body are connected. Actually, I read a research study by Johns Hopkins. Believe it or not, they do a lot of research, really good research. And they found that when their patients don't get a visit from somebody to boost their spirits up, they don't have good outcomes.
Yeah, I can see that.
They take more medicine, they have more complications, they spend longer days in the hospital. It's not good. And so they've made it a point that every patient gets a visit. They actually have visitors that go around and visit.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so the mind and body are completely connected. But there are a lot of medical things that happen when somebody's anxiety is out of control. ulcers. What happens from a physiologic perspective is when anxiety is like inferno and it stays inferno all the time, you actually produce a lot of stomach acid, which then causes ulcers a lot, because it's just so much, the body can't keep up.
Right.
Headaches, migraines are horrible. You have stress-induced migraines, which stress typically means anxiety.
Yeah.
You know, they're interchangeable. And so somebody with out-of-control anxiety is going to have a lot of migraines. You might have heart issues. If you're on volume 10 all the time with your anxiety, inferno, you know, your heart rate's and it doesn't go down, you know, it weakens the heart muscle, which if you are already in the hole, like you already have issues, can make them worse. Sometimes chronic pain, what normally should be a little bit of pain, because you're anxious and inferno all the time, it's way bigger than it should be, which is why when let's say you have chronic pain, you've got anxiety on top of it, your muscles go like this.
So your muscles tense up and contract. And,
yeah. So, you know, even if you have a chronic illness like Crohn's disease, that gets worse with anxiety that's out of control. Pretty much any chronic medical condition does not do well with out of control anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we've been looking at